The year was 1887. Women had not yet been granted the right to vote nationally in the United States. However, due to grassroots efforts, the fight for women's suffrage had turned into a state-by-state battle, with some states granting women's suffrage long before the 19th Amendment. These states included Wyoming, New Jersey, and Utah, just to name a few. There were 20 states in total. Our video today takes us to Kansas, where in 1887, municipal suffrage was granted, allowing women to vote in city elections and hold office. A great day for women, right? Well, not everyone was happy about this. With the right just granted, some men set out to discourage local women from participating in politics, and they thought they had found the perfect plan to do so. Public humiliation. What began as a mean-spirited joke landed one woman a permanent place in American history. Susanna Medora, nicknamed Dora, Kinsey, was born on March 2, 1860 in Ohio to Oliver Kinsey and Teresa Ann White Kinsey, the descendants of Quaker colonists from England. Their ancestors had come to America from England with William Penn's colonists on the ship Welcome. At the age of 12, Susanna moved to Kansas with her parents, settling on an 80-acre farm near Silver Lake. In the 1870s, Kansas was a rapidly evolving Wild West frontier, with the population growing tremendously as railroads expanded, making towns like Wichita and Dodge City key hubs for trade and cattle. The landscape was undergoing a massive transformation from open prairie to agricultural land. In 1878, Susanna Kinsey entered Kansas State Agricultural College, which is now present-day Kansas State University, as a sophomore, as she had completed her college freshman courses in high school. Unfortunately, she was not able to complete her degree as she became ill 6 weeks before graduation. During her studies, Susanna had her first brush with someone tangentially related to politics. She met Lewis Allison Salter, an aspiring attorney and the son of former Kansas Lieutenant Governor Melville J. Salter. Salter graduated in 1879, and Susanna married him on September 1, 1880 at Silver Lake. The young couple moved to Argonia, Kansas in 1882, where Salter managed a hardware store. In the 1880s, Argonia, Kansas was a newly established small prairie town that grew from a tiny settlement into a notable politically progressive community within the decade. Susanna gave birth to the first baby born in Argonia, Francis Argonia Salter, in 1883. A year later, her parents moved to Argonia and bought the store Lewis was managing, which was operating under the firm name of Kinsey and Salter. Lewis then started reading law with a local attorney to prepare himself for the bar exam. The town of Argonia was incorporated in 1885. This meant Argonia was now a municipality that had received a charter from the state of Kansas, establishing it as a legally defined entity with its own local government, boundaries, and authority. Following the city's incorporation in 1885, Susanna's father, Oliver Kinsey, and husband, Lewis Salter, were elected as the city's first mayor and city clerk, respectively. 2 years later, the Kansas legislature enacted a law giving women suffrage in first, second, and third-class cities. Since Argonia was a third-class city, the women there became eligible to vote. Susanna Salter was a highly intelligent woman and active in her community, just like her father and husband. She joined the Women's Christian Temperance Union and Prohibition Party after moving to Argonia. The Women's Christian Temperance Union was among the first organizations of women devoted to social reform, with a program that linked the religious and the secular through concerted and far-reaching reform strategies. In the late 1880s, they were passionate about getting prohibition enacted, as many linked social ills like domestic violence, poverty, and crime to alcohol consumption. The U.S., and especially the West, was growing and growing fast, and law and order was struggling to keep up. With the Kansas legislature granting women the ability to vote, the members of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, from here on referred to as WCTU, now had the perfect chance to put someone in office locally that could help them get the desired prohibition enacted. They called a caucus and selected a ticket of men whom they considered to be worthy of the town's offices, regardless of political labels. However, a certain group of men in Argonia felt that the field of politics was their exclusive domain and resented the intrusion of the women into political affairs. 2 of these men had attended the caucus and heckled the proceedings. They even attempted to nominate a candidate, but were voted down. Mind you, they could have just started their own group to determine who they were going to push forward and campaign for, but no, they just had to interrupt these women's meetings to flex. Now, these men did eventually create their own secret group, but it was solely to figure out a way to undermine the women's group. A secret caucus was called by a group of 20 men in the back room of a local restaurant, where they decided to teach the women of Argonia a lesson. The plan? To draw up a slate of candidates identical with that of the WCTU, except that for the office of mayor, they substituted Mrs. Salter's name instead of the man the WCTU had decided to vote for. They assumed that the women would vote for the WCTU slate and that any men voting would not vote for a woman. The idea was if Mrs. Salter got only 20 votes, it would embarrass the WCTU as a political organization. They also felt that such a move would curb some of the WCTU's political activities. Mrs. Salter was chosen to be the butt of this prank because she was the only officer of the WCTU who was eligible for office, as the others lived outside the town limits. On the day of the election, Susanna Salter had no clue her name was on the ballot. This was able to be done because names of candidates were not required to be published before Election Day. The secret faction simply printed out the ballots with her name listed as a mayoral candidate. When some people turned up early to vote, they were shocked to see Mrs. Salter's name. The chairman of the Republican Party in Argonia immediately sent a delegation to see her. They found her in the middle of doing the family laundry and explained the situation to her. They wanted to know if she would accept the position if she was elected. After some thought, Susanna agreed. to which they replied, "All right, we will elect you and just show those fellows who framed up this deal a thing or two." A grassroots campaign started for Susanna Salter immediately on the spot. All day, as people came in to vote, members explained the situation and encouraged people to vote for Susanna. As an early voter, Mr. Salter also saw the ballot and was angered when he discovered his wife's name on it. He was even more irritated when he returned home and found out his wife had consented to serve if elected. In the end, the members of the WCTU decided to abandon their caucus nominee and voted for Mrs. Salter in such numbers that she received a 2/3 majority. Instead of humiliating the women, that secret faction had helped elect the first woman mayor in the country. When the results were known, Mrs. Salter's husband adjusted himself to the situation and, with a certain amount of pride, made jokes about being the husband of the mayor. Susanna Salter's term as mayor was rather uneventful, but the election itself garnered national attention. One of the first city council meetings over which the newly elected Mayor Salter presided was attended by a correspondent of the New York Sun. He wrote his story describing the mayor's dress and hat and pointing out that she presided with great decorum. He noted that several times she checked irrelevant discussion, demonstrating that she was a good parliamentarian. Other publicity extended to newspapers as far away as Sweden and South Africa. Debates were started over whether it was feasible or even should be encouraged for other towns to elect female officials. After a year in office, Susanna Salter decided to decline re-election. Following her term as mayor, Salter and her family continued to live in Argonia until 1893, when her husband acquired land on the Cherokee Strip in Alva, Oklahoma. 10 years later, they moved to Augusta in Woods County, Oklahoma Territory, where her husband practiced law and established the Headlight newspaper. They eventually joined the town's settlers in moving to Carmen, Oklahoma. Following her husband's death in 1916, Susanna moved to Norman, Oklahoma to accompany her younger children during their studies at the University of Oklahoma. She lived in Norman for the remainder of her life and maintained an interest in religious and political matters, but never again sought elected office. Susanna Salter died on March 17, 1961 in Norman, Oklahoma, 2 weeks after her 101st birthday, and was buried in Argonia alongside her husband. That concludes our video for today. As I stated, Susanna Salter's term as mayor was not very exciting. Because Argonia was a small municipality. So, how much did they really have to do for the town? Even though I'm sure it was very important to them. But I just find it so funny that even though we don't know the 20 names of the men that put her on the ballot, it's very karmic that instead of discouraging women from participating in politics, they actually helped a woman create political history in the United States by being elected as the first female official in the US. Insane. And I'm sure they're still rolling over in their graves to this date from embarrassment and I don't know. But that concludes our video for today. If you know something about our topic, please leave it in the comment section. This is a place for knowledge and discussion. And yeah, if you have any questions for me, or you want to leave a suggestion for a woman in history, you can leave it in the comment section. And there was an individual that suggested an Indian female warrior in one of my earlier videos. I think maybe the Vishakanyas video, and I will be getting to that eventually. So if you have a woman you want to recommend for a video, please let me know. Other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.